cosmic explorers. Welcome back to the Age of Aquarius, where we dive deep into the celestial happenings that shape our daily lives. I'm your host, Jacy Nova, and I'm joined today by my good friend and tech entrepreneur, Susan Brazer. Say hello, Susan.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here with you today.
So just to give everyone a little backstory, Susan and I have been friends for 25 years. We've worked together, I think, all over the world, pretty much. But maybe you can share a little bit about how we know each other.
Yeah, I mean, we met in around 2000. It was really 1999 when we were both talking to the FIFA World Cup group about next generation sports experiences. That's how many years ago it was. And it was an extraordinary thing to be part of such a rich and premier sports property and to be innovating new ideas around it. So that's how we met. And we've always been able to have a conversation about what's next and what's new. And so it's particularly cool to put it in context of astrology, which I've always leaned into you for guidance on. So I think it's a new framework for looking at innovation and changes in environment and changes in political and social landscape against the new Pluto in Aquarius.
We actually saw each other over the holidays and just decided that we needed to do this podcast together. And today we're going to be talking about Pluto in Aquarius and our predictions for 2025. So buckle up because it's going to be a pretty interesting ride. So I know, Susan, when we were talking over Christmas about what's the deal with Pluto and Aquarius? So it started November 19th, 2024, and it is going to be transiting through March 8th, 2043. So we just left Pluto in Capricorn. And what that was is Pluto in Capricorn is about control, power, money, greed, wars. And it's interesting that we're going into this new era because Pluto is the planet of deep transformation, rebirth, and sometimes a little destruction before reconstruction. When Pluto settles into futuristic, community-driven Aquarius, it's like the universe is hitting the refresh button on our collective vibes. Aquarius is all about breaking molds, championing innovation, and reminding us that we're all connected in the cosmic web. Translation, big social shifts, fresh perspectives on community, and the renaissance of personal freedom. And then, of course, if you're living in the United States, we know we're going to have a new president January 20th, which, it could go either way for us. What do you think, Susan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the edge of Capricorn is really got a spotlight on it right now because that's what half the U.S. feels, really, the sort of the chaos and uncertainty, a feeling of somewhat resistance, a feeling that's catalyzed to change. A lot of people feel disoriented. I think a lot of people are super excited about what he brings and sort of the irreverence to corporate infrastructure from behind. And yet he's using it. So it's a real moment of transition. I think astrologically, it feels exactly how it should, this transition point. We're at the beginning of this next 20-year saga. And the US feels like a real, blown up view of what the change is about to happen. We don't feel all the goodness of it yet. There's just a lot of change in the air. And that's not that comfortable for everyone.
I think one of the coolest things about Pluto and Aquarius is how it emphasizes the power of us. This transit can spark major movements where people join forces to tackle long-standing issues. Think about 1960s and grassroots activism and revolutionary technology and an overall desire for all of us to create a fairer playing field for everyone. In 2025, we might see new social initiatives everywhere from local communities to global organizations. As people feel the need to unite and make real changes happen, they're not really happy with the two-party system of Republicans and Democrats. And this is an opportunity for all of us to raise the consciousness level.
It's really amazing because what we also talked about is I've been working on a platform called Thin Air, which is a next generation media platform. That is a decentralized platform to empower people to directly connect with one another and gather in groups. And it's ideal for community. So it is a completely next generation platform that's launching in 2025. So ironic to have this conversation.
I think what's important too, what's coming up when people are talking about OpenAI and also Google with their AI platform Gemini is the talk of ethical questions too, like who controls our data and how do we protect human values in the AI world. It's also like a pretty exciting time to be alive, but also it's a critical one for being mindful and intentional about how we use technology. I'm just curious, Susan, like what is your take on the ethics behind AI? And as being a tech entrepreneur, like are there any issues that concern you or do you think that that's overblown?
I mean, I think that we're in the beginning phases of where the power of AI can take us. And I think it does require a lot of ethical prioritization. There are, we're in this mode of LLMs and they can easily break also because they require a lot of energy to scale. And I think that there's a move that I'm in, which is using AI to digitally transform a lot of traditional operations or systems that are very inefficient. For example, media distribution could be much more automated.
But what about the ethics of AI, where people are concerned that it might take other people's jobs, it might become sentient? How does it share information, things like that?
I mean, I think ultimately that we have a long way to go before it becomes truly sentient. I think there's a lot of mirage between what's really happening and what's going to happen. But I think it is an absolute issue. And the question is, it's out of the bag. Like, who is controlling it? Does it start to control itself? And we just become another organism, not the guiding one. And I think that is a big challenge that a lot of the leading AI innovators who have been working in it for a while recognize. I mean, I started 30 years ago at Apple working on Siri. And believe it or not, most of what we could do today and much of what we're talking about today is not actualized by the vision that we had. So as fast as it's moving, certainly in 2025, I think we're safe with that. Does it, if you become a person who can use AI and learn some of the tools as they improve and become easier to use and more integrated, that I think is going to happen over the next few years. And younger generations will have to adapt and grow with that so that they can employ the tools and become much more efficient, much more capable of using their time, setting things up and executing as opposed to doing as much manual work. So I think there's a lot of advantages and there's going to be things that I get a smile every time I use ChatGPT and get something really quick and done. And I think that joy can be a big part of it as well. So I think it's a tool and it's a new digital tool. And it needs to be scoped.
I think that's true. I mean, I think it's going to continue to unfold. And I think 2025 is going to be a big year for that, where some of those questions will get answered. But then I think it will continue to evolve as the technology evolves. Now let's talk politics. One of the biggest waves shaking up 2025 is President Trump returning to power on January 20th. So under Pluto and Aquarius, I think we can expect a surge of public discourse around freedom, social reform, and technology. On the other hand, this might reignite debates over individual rights and how democracy functions in a quickly shifting technology world. It's been a big discussion over the weekend about platforms having censorship and the discussions around immigration and social justice and social issues. But also, I think it's going to reignite debates over individual rights and how democracy functions in a quickly shifting technology world. I just read that President Trump requested that the Supreme Court put a pause on the ban of TikTok. So we'll see how that plays out.
Of course he did. They went down to Mar-a-Lago. So they had a nice chat and paid him a check. I'm sure that was in the offing no matter what. Because first of all, it is good for people to still have TikTok. And secondly, it's not Truth Social or, X. So it is like a third. He can get away with it on a competitive level that it's something. But the universe, and particularly most global youth culture, really thrives on TikTok, and it's an easy to use app. And so the ban is sort of not totally necessary. If, certain protocols and behaviors were in place and checkpoints, they could get away with it. And I'm sure that he will. There's no doubt in my mind that TikTok was here to stay in my mind.
Yeah. I also think that Pluto and Aquarius is also going to spur some grassroots movements from citizens who want to shape new policy directions or challenge old ones. So maybe adding a third party, Republican, Democrat. Obviously, we have libertarians. But I think we're going to see more organizations pop up But also Pluto and Aquarius is about transformation, and political power plays will be a front row seat for all of us on this cosmic show. How do you see politically things kind of shaking out in 2025? What's your perspective on that?
Wow. I think one of the things that's interesting about January is I just was reading that somebody is organizing on January 3rd, a real grassroots movement into Washington to just go peacefully, dress appropriately, no guns, and just make your cause that you just want to support the 14th Amendment and not have Trump go in. So I don't hold a lot of weight for that. I'm fascinated to see who shows up. But I do think it's interesting that they're bringing it back because there has been a lot of rebuttal against how the court has handled the questions facing the 14th Amendment that, Colorado put out there. And Colorado, wanted to take them off the ballot because of the insurrection. And apparently they voted for it and the Supreme Court didn't go with it. So I think even at the kickstart of the year on January 3rd, we're going to start to see that grassroots initiatives come up. And I think that there's a women's march scheduled as well, but there are some pivotal dates, like January 6th is also a pivotal date. So as we're kind of stepping in to Q1 and to be even before he's coronated or before he takes his
Crowned.
He's crowned. There's a lot of people holding their breath to kind of fight from different angles, and there's very little coming out of the existing or the current government, right? We don't hear anything from the Democrats on that level. What I find fascinating is I read 2 articles last night about what happens to Mike Johnson. Now, that is actually interesting because the argument is that not all of the Republicans are happy with Mike Johnson and the way he handled the budget passage just now. So there seems to be a rift that is less technical and a little bit more about the right versus, the MAGA right. And I think that's going to shape up. Now, if they don't have the Speaker of the House and they stand for that, and I think it's January 6th, he has to approve the election results. So I think it's going to be an interesting January. The next 2 weeks are going to be very chaotic.
Well, I think with Pluto and Aquarius, it's like the great thing about social media and the internet is you can connect with people from all over the world that share the same point of view as you.
Yeah.
And I think people are trusting government less and less and thinking for themselves. And I think change, and this is just my opinion, really starts on a local level. You can help change your community. You can, change politics on where you live, and then you go up onto the global stage. But I think 2025 is going to be pretty interesting. I've gone down the rabbit hole. I've talked with you a little bit about it, about the rise of drone sightings in New Jersey and New York over the last few weeks. And in the realm of outer space, we've seen that major uptick in drone and unidentified aerial sightings lately. And there are so many videos out and so many different takes on what it is and people's collective imaginations about alien life, like their parallel dimensions, is there life on Mars, and all these like interesting questions. And it's under the watchful eye of Pluto and Aquarius. Some of the topics that really interest me is the space exploration boom. And that really is, in my opinion, driven by Elon Musk with new missions to the moon, Mars, and beyond. Are we going to see governments and private companies basically start talking about off-world living, space stations, things like that? I think that could be a topic of discussion.
So 30 years ago, I got involved with the space industry when we launched DirecTV. And so I've been a fan of watching that space, so to speak, since then. And I've always been watching, especially in the past 5 to 10 years. It's not only SpaceX. They really took a leadership role, and they work with the company I used to work with to launch their rockets, SES Astra. But Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic, there's an absolute plethora of new space tech companies that are doing space stations, low Earth satellites, tourism. And I think the whole thing is going to open up like the 60s. It's going to be really a whole new era in the next decade or so for space travel. And I see all these new innovative companies in space tech. I mean, it's a big space for venture capital. And I think that, it's long overdue. I think that the idea of the drone technologies are just the beginning, right? Because, they're really interesting how they roll, but we can't figure out what they are exactly. But there's going to be a whole wide range of new types, drone-like cars and, they're called eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. And they are essentially like a hybrid between cars and aircraft. And so you're going to have to see like how this is going to urbanize mobility in, cities and reduce traffic congestion. Like we're going to move from just drones doing kind of light shows and to something else. So there's a group down in San Diego that I'm working with that does immersive technologies with Qualcomm, and they're looking at all the archaeology of all the things that have been buried. So we're now into this space of really trying to understand our origin story and recognize that maybe the Genesis story isn't so true. So who knows? It's going to bring up all sorts of new thinking about, religion and relations and interstellar travel. I mean, it's just really going to be mind blowing over the next 25 years, I think.
I think when we were talking about the drones, I thought an interesting information that you shared with me is that we talked about Elon Musk being super quiet about all this drone activity. And you shared some information with me, which I wasn't aware of, is that his brother owns a drone company.
Yeah. And he bought it, he watched this magical light show. I mean, the Chinese really are amazing at this. And, he is in part of Elon's ecosystem. So nobody really knows what is the drone. There's also podcasters that assert those are really from a whole cabal of people from Lockheed in the space industry that have, through their interactions with, aliens or space objects before, that they have much more advanced technology than we can even imagine. And they're just playing it out. The question is the timing, like why now? Why do we see all these red maps?
Yeah, it feels very orchestrated. Does it feel like that to you?
Yeah, and I don't think it's random. I mean, I mean, orchestrated in a very timely way. Is it a distraction? Is there a message there? I think there are countless people trying to ferret out the information. But I think in that case, for me, it seems a little curious right now. I mean, I can't say why. I'm not sure. It feels like a distraction to me as opposed to an authentic movement. Maybe there's a concern from the outer beings that they feel that we're playing with nuclear fire, but that doesn't feel like the situation at the moment. But, we're not in touch with all that classified information.
Well, I do think it's interesting. In Trump's last presidency, he did Space Force, which he is part of the military. So it may sound kind of wild, but maybe there's some alien diplomacy going on. Maybe we'll get more ET signals. I do think that 2025 is a prime real estate for cosmic surprises and possibly the drones. We're kind of testing the waters to see how people would respond. And you're from New Jersey. So I was always like watching the short and videos. And I was always like, everyone from New Jersey and New York are like, oh, look at that drone in the sky. Nobody was like freaked out or paranoid, but they found it kind of fun and interesting.
New Jersey people are very interesting in general. They're very direct. And so they're not really hysterics. They can flip a table too. So I think the thing about the drones in New Jersey is curious to me because proximity to New York, of course, and also the East Coast corridor, sort of the mid-Atlantic corridor is where the government is, obviously, and some of these technologies, it makes sense. But there's something about New Jersey, and I don't know if we can tie it to Trump or not, being that he has a lot of property in New Jersey and that's his second home, so to speak. But I do think the thing about the drones that is fascinating is the timing, right? And not so much that they could be, governmental drones or they can just be, but it's also the orbs that seem to be these like little bulbous, floaty objects that that people are spotting as well. So the consistency of seeing it in Colorado and seeing the same thing in Oregon and seeing the same thing in New Jersey, that's also very fascinating to me. Like all of a sudden we're all over the place. It's not just it's in one little nook and cranny with a bunch of old guys noting it down on a piece of paper. So I think we're on to something with that. It'll be interesting to see. The other thing I just want to say is the biggest change that I think that centers all of this infrastructure is the new era in the Pluto Aquarius age. I think quantum computing. And we are at the incredible beginning, like it is in the inception moment of that. And I think that quantum computing is so far advanced that it won't be able to even use silicon chips, that whole silicon industry that we've been living on since the 70s. It's sort of going to move into a new era. As a matter of fact, it looks like you need to mine diamonds in order to kind of get a chip that will work in a whole new way. So the speed and the complexity is going to just be extraordinary. We have no way to imagine what that's going to be. And then the need for new electrical power to handle all of that, right? And new sources of renewable energy or battery systems or the smart grid infrastructure. There's so many changes that will come to support the breakthroughs, but these breakthroughs will, be across every aspect of our lives, whether it's healthcare and developing medicine or doing security or managing electricity or tackling even climate change. So, that is a secret weapon that most people don't know about. It is absolutely phantom at this moment because it's so enormous of a change, but it's really, we're not even at the beginning in a way of that. It's got a long way to go. So that 20-year run is going to be very filled with quantum discoveries.
I'm looking forward to maybe we can do time travel or teleporting. That would make my drive from Arizona to California much shorter.
The thing is, this all blends, right? I was watching Joe Dispenza on a video the other night, who I really like, and he really blends a new way of looking at yourself, your soul, and your science. And I found it interesting because he talked about every mammal has a pineal gland that acts differently, but it's sort of a receptor for energy and frequencies. And so it then gets activated by your breath and by your physiology. And it connects you, I think, to other people. So I felt like the science of how we operate as human beings is really very super connected energetically. And we really we're just beginning to learn about that as well, I think. We talk about it spiritually, and I think astrologically, you've always guided me in understanding what's about to happen. How do you connect the dots with that to some of the changes that we're seeing?
I've been looking at Pluto and Aquarius for quite a while. And on a personal level, I found Pluto and Capricorn to be very challenging for me. I'm a Virgo, but I have a lot of Libra in my chart. For anyone interested in astrology, I have Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Libra, along with with Pluto and Capricorn, it's about structure and control. And it has this kind of Saturn influence and forcing people to make changes that they maybe necessarily didn't want to make. You had COVID, where we were forced in a lockdown, which required people to move to different parts of the country, which I think kind of shook things up a little bit now that we're in Pluto and Aquarius. I think people are much more focused on friendships on a local level, but also you have your global friendships that maybe you have a friend that might be living overseas that you never get to see, but you can connect with on a regular basis. And I feel like Pluto and Aquarius has really started this collective conversation and also kind of leads into, the conspiracy theories that we see online. But are they really conspiracy theories? Are they actually the truth? And the old guard is trying to say, oh, no, that's not true. Like an example, Biden's decline, the Democratic Party was saying, oh no, he's healthy, he's fine, he's this, he's that. Now that Trump's won, the Washington Post comes out and go, oh no, he's had dementia and has been declining since he was elected. But also I think in 2025, the big conversation is about COVID and the cover up and vaccines and really about healthcare and what is true and what isn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, the healthcare thing, I can't say that we're happy about any of what happened with COVID, but I do feel that it was an enormous seismic shift, not only in terms of our lifestyles, but our social lives, right? It really changed our balance personally, I think. I go out a lot less than I used to, and maybe that's age related, but maybe not. I think there's so many powerful things that happened as a result of COVID. So it's fascinating about some of the structural and cultural changes that COVID had. But on the healthcare side, boy, I do think, what's your take on Luigi? He came out of nowhere with a lot of issues and health issues and shined the light on that whole Capricorn control point of that CEO. I think that was the first cannonball out of the cannon to say, we're not happy with healthcare and we're not happy with how it's being administrated and how it's being served up, actually. So there's a lot of stories on the whole US or the kind of Western medical scenario, and not everyone's too happy about it. I think that's one of the dialogues that's been on social media that everybody's really got multiple ideas about. And, even podcasters who I really like are still hanging on, well, JFK doesn't even like fluoride. I'm like, that one has been brought up and we've all kind of bought off on that fluoride's not so great. There are things like you just said that are not necessarily conspiracies. They're the truth. And there's a difference between conspiracy and the truth. Let's get to the truth if we can. It's not your truth, it's the truth. And we forget that. It's hard to get there. It's getting increasingly hard to get there.
I do think 2025 is going to be super interesting, which brings me to some predictions that I have, and you might have a few of your own. But here's what I think will be in the cosmic pipeline. Now, I did write this yesterday. A major political figure will pass away, and God bless him, Jimmy Carter passed away today.
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't hear that. That's amazing. Well, he was holding out, a Democratic victory, but I guess he gave it up.
Yeah, he made it to 100 years and an amazing, talented, wonderful man.
Yes.
Next prediction is I think Russia and Ukraine will come to some kind of truce. There's going to be a diplomatic breakthrough after Trump takes office, and we'll finally bring a temporary ceasefire, if not a permanent end to the war. Russia right now is really suffering on an economic level. And I personally don't think Putin will be around, meaning not politically, but I mean on this planet within the next few years. Like I do see him transitioning.
Relief.
Another one is I think Taylor Swift, a Sag, and her sweetheart, Travis Kelce, a Libra, will get engaged this year.
Oh, that's happy news. That's super happy.
Yeah, I would love to see them get engaged. Yeah. I also feel like Beyoncé, a Virgo, and Jay-Z will split. And I think the P. Diddy trial is going to really heat things up, and a lot of celebrities are going to feel the heat. I do think that P. Diddy will spill the beans, per se. What do you think?
Wow. First of all, she just did that big show down in Texas at the game last weekend, and everybody just was wowed by her. She is an extraordinary talent. And the more she bites into that Texas upbringing for her, I think it's a good thing. It distances her from the Hollywood and New York scene.
I think the next prediction that I have is the JFK files will be finally declassified. The long-held secrets will be revealed. It also reignite debates about one of America's most enduring conspiracy theories, but also about the CIA, like what the CIA is really doing. And my last prediction is King Charles will abdicate the throne and will step down, allowing Prince William and Catherine to become the new king and queen of England.
Wow, that sounds like a really good set of predictions. I believe that sounds like the right path for Charles. And it's an ironic thing that he waited his whole entire life to get that role, and now his role is to give it to his son. So it's very bittersweet.
Bittersweet. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think for most people, I think that whether you're interested in astrology or not, it's like, how do you ride the wave basically in 2025? I think it's really important that you stay open. Aquarius vibes really thrive on open minds. So I think it's important for people to stay curious, whether it's taking a workshop, learning a new tech skill, exploring a social cause, anything that speaks to your heart. And really, this is your moment to explore. And even if you say you're homebound, you can always watch YouTube. You can always learn online. But I would say really keep an open mind. I think also it's important to collaborate, find your tribe or join an interest group that shares your values. I think there's massive power in collective intention. Really, right now, it helps raise the vibration. And it's also really a time to release and renew. Pluto can stir up old patterns that no longer serve you. So as they surface, I think it's important to practice letting go with compassion. Also, forgiveness is for you. It's not for other people. So if you're holding on to old resentment or you haven't forgiven someone for maybe what they've done to you, is to forgive them for yourself so you can let go of that energy. So I think journaling, therapy, or even just having a good heart-to-heart chat with a family member or a friend to talk about how you're feeling. And Pluto in Aquarius really is about a cosmic reset button. And it's all about leveling up personally and collectively through fresh ideas, collaborative action, and sometimes a bit of chaos. I don't know what you think, Susan, but I think 2025 is going to be a year of sweeping transformation that for some people are going to feel radical, but it's also part of Pluto's plan to help us evolve into a more connected, forward-thinking society.
I mean, just to put this in at the end, I think that's all good. I think the economic horizon, which we didn't really address, feels threatening. And I think the way you've laid it out is that you really just have to kind of find your people and find your way through. It's not easy to be financially stressed and to see so much change in your work world and in your financial stability. So I think that's going to be a wrench that I'd like to throw. I think that is going to be an important determinant of people's feelings over the next year and their ability to relax into the transformation. So it's going to be a bumpy ride. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. So if you're listening and this sounds intriguing to you, we're just getting started. So Cosmic Explorers, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another episode. Until next time, keep embracing that Aquarian spirit. Stay curious, stay open, and remember, transformation is just another word for growth.